You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now. The investigation into how a teen girl got a gun to shoot up her Madison, Wisconsin school continues. The picture forming about her turbulent home life and who may have influenced her motivations. Then a Florida drug ring busted. Over a dozen arrested. At least 5 kinds of narcotics found. How local community members helped bring the suspects to justice.
The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years.
Interest rates are coming down again, but why other news out of the Fed today could have played a role in one of the worst market trading days of the year. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Tonight, police continue to scour for answers in the latest school shooting to devastate an American community, this time in Madison, Wisconsin. 6 victims working to recover tonight, and at least 2 families mourning a devastating loss. A beloved teacher and student killed by 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow, who soon after turned the gun on herself. Tonight, the Washington Post reports court records paint a troubled home life for Rupnow. Those records showing her parents were divorced and remarried multiple times, and that Rupnow had been enrolled in therapy. This as a newly surfaced photo from Rupnow's father's Facebook page appears to show the teen at a shooting range, wearing the T-shirt of a band that the shooters behind the Columbine school massacre in 1999 were known to be avid fans of. A Wisconsin lawmaker says Rupnow's writings were concerning.
She was in social media and she literally lifts up and honored killers around the world, not just killings or shootings here in America, but in other parts of the world.
Law enforcement has yet to corroborate Rupnow's social media writings and say they are working to authenticate an alleged manifesto that reveals her motivations for the shooting. Tonight, investigators in Utah believe a father killed 4 of his family members and then himself inside their home. 5 bodies were found yesterday, along with a teen who was found alive with a gunshot wound. He was taken to the hospital. Police say they became aware of the family on Monday following a wellness check from a relative.
It was a family member who had been looking for the woman who lives in the home. This family member has consistent contact with the woman who lives inside the home. That contact had dropped off, and that was concerning for her.
A small handgun was discovered under the man's body at the crime scene, but the investigation is still going on right now. Autopsies have not yet been completed. The fate of popular social media app TikTok now in the hands of the United States Supreme Court. Today, the High Court granted TikTok's request to hear their argument for why a ban set to go into effect next month is unconstitutional. Lawmakers have cited national security concerns over TikTok parent company's ties to China and that country's control over American user information. The company has argued the ban violates the First Amendment. Lawmakers say if they sell the app to a non-Chinese entity, the ban won't happen. SCOTUS will hear the case on January 10th, just days before the app is set to be blocked. In recent days, President-elect Donald Trump has signaled he would also reevaluate a pending ban on TikTok. The Senate is sending a $900 billion budget bill to President Biden's desk, but not the one needed to stop a potential government shutdown on Friday night. This legislation is the annual National Defense Authorization Act passed by the House last week. The bill in part includes a pay raise for junior service members, provisions to counter the Chinese military, as well as restrictions on gender-changing care for the military. 11 Senate Democrats joined 3 Republicans in voting it down. Meanwhile, support for the continuing resolution to keep the government running past this week may be lacking in Congress. Both CNN and Fox are reporting House Republicans are jumping ship after Elon Musk posted, quote, "Any member who votes for this outrageous bill deserves to be voted out in 2 years." With the clock ticking down, Donald Trump has also come out against the bill as Speaker Mike Johnson is now discussing whether or not to vote on a clean bill that doesn't have any extra spending attached, like disaster relief or farm aid included. And it all comes as lawmakers are working behind the scenes to plan major cuts to government agencies next session. Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell with what expenditures could be targeted first.
Deep into the season of shopping, a behind-the-scenes effort of chopping, as in determining what will be on the chopping block in the new year.
I think we want to be logical, measured, yet aggressive at the same time.
Vivek Ramaswamy, along with Tesla CEO and SpaceX founder Elon Musk, have been selected to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, an outside group set to work with those inside the government, with the goal of cutting $2 trillion in spending, with hopes of making some large cuts combined with several smaller ones, often highlighted by Senator Rand Paul.
$100,000 to give tequila to Sunfish and gin and see which one made them more aggressive.
The Doge page on X, also owned by Elon Musk, filling up with clues about what may be targeted first. Cracking down on improper payments in Medicare and Medicaid, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, including in America's schools, and with the Pentagon just failing its 7th straight audit, a possibility of a crackdown there, an idea celebrated by one of the most progressive members of Congress.
They can't account literally for trillions of dollars in property and stuff that they own. They have no idea where the money is going. But we give them more and more money.
Another goal out of the gate, insisting federal workers return to the office 5 days a week, a mandate they believe will lead to 25% of workers quitting on their own.
We must get workers back to work. If we're going to make a determination about the size of work and what's ahead, noses are going to have to be counted. The President of the United States will be able to do that through an executive order and tell people they've got to come back.
But there are major concerns that Donald Trump's mandate to cut spending could be on a collision course with his other policy promises. More resources for the border, a mass deportation program estimated to cost more than $300 billion, and a promise not to touch Social Security. Amira?
Yeah, that sounds like a tall order. Wouldn't that be difficult to accomplish, Christine?
Yeah, I mean, not to get too inside the beltway, but when we talk about discretionary spending, which includes defense spending that many here on Capitol Hill don't even want to touch, that's just 30% of the federal budget. So if they're serious about that $2 trillion goal, Congress will need to decide which mandatory spending to cut. And by the way, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, when you start losing money your constituents are counting on, that's when we expect the excitement over cutting government spending that may die down a little bit.
All right, we'll see what happens. A big task ahead, that's for sure. Christine Frizzell reporting from Washington, D.C. for us. Thank you. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz blasting the House Ethics Committee's plan to release the report on its investigation into him. Gaetz says the DOJ spent years reviewing allegations of sex trafficking and illegal drug use and did not charge him. He said he's embarrassed about some of his actions, but argues they're not criminal. Lawmakers say the report will come out after the final day of votes before the holidays.
Gaetz is going to have an opportunity to defend this, and I'm sure he'll be given plenty of TV time on CNN and other networks to defend himself against any allegations in the report that may or may not be true.
Releasing an ethics report after someone has left Congress is rare. Gaetz was Trump's pick for Attorney General, but he withdrew. Ryan Routh, the man accused of the second Trump assassination attempt, is facing a new attempted murder charge today. Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody says that during the chase to apprehend Routh as he fled the golf course back in September, a traffic accident happened that critically injured a young girl. While she survived, her family is coping with her injuries. Moody also criticized federal officials for blocking state law enforcement's investigation and from acquiring evidence in the area, including the details of that particular accident when it happened. The search for two teen brothers who disappeared over the weekend on a California lake when their kayak overturned has now moved into a recovery mission. The two were out duck hunting in the Thermalito After Bay, about an hour north of Sacramento, when one of them went underwater. One brother called 911 to help rescue the other, but ultimately decided to try and get the job done alone. And now neither are believed to be alive. With the search now in its 5th day, agencies are intensifying their efforts.
We're running a lot of sonar equipment, trying to narrow down anomalies that we can then further inspect with underwater ROVs, which are unoperated or unmanned underwater vehicles, as well as divers.
Community members with diving expertise have also been volunteering in the search. 16 arrested, more to come. A major crime and drug ring busted in West Palm Beach in an operation codenamed Not on Our Block. The investigation is 3 months old and it's still ongoing. With help from local citizens using the police department's Safer Watch app, police were able to confiscate marijuana, oxycodone, flakka, cocaine, and crack that was being sold inside the community. Out of those 16 individuals arrested, they collectively have 124 felony convictions.
My message to the community is thank you for letting us know. Thank you for working with us. My message to those folks that are involved in criminal activity, especially poisoning our neighborhoods, look over your shoulder. We're not done.
Right now, an urgent manhunt underway for suspected child rapist Jesus Tamanis Peralta. Florida officials believe he was last seen on Sunday in McAllen, Texas, about 10 miles away from the U.S.-Mexico border.
I would say this to Jesus Peralta: we are after you. And by God's grace, we're going to get our hands on you before you get across the Rio Grande.
Tamanis Peralta is accused of abusing a girl for 8 years. Investigators say he's been on the run since last week when the victim's mother confronted him. He may be trying to reach his home in Veracruz, Mexico, to evade capture. If convicted in Florida, Tamanis Peralta could face the death penalty. Anyone with information should call the Martin County Sheriff's Office or 911. A patient in Louisiana has the first severe case of bird flu in the United States. The CDC says the person made contact with sick and dead birds in backyard flocks. This as California Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency in response to the bird flu today. The declaration comes following the spread of avian influenza in 16 different states. Coming up, why the third and final interest rate cut of the year might be the last one we see until next spring. Then, how to avoid falling for holiday shopping scams that could transfer your personal information right to criminals. And later, the history of a Texas-based space company preparing to make when it heads to the moon with NASA next month. We'll be right back. Yeah, for the first time in 50 years, the Dow Jones Industrial Average has dropped 10 trading days in a row. This morning, it looked like the streak was coming to an end, but then around 2 p.m. this afternoon, trading on the floor changed and the market went south. In the end, this 2.5-point drop today is by far the biggest one-day decline we've seen in the past 2 weeks and the second biggest one-day drop to see this year. And we're not at a record streak yet. In both 1974 and 1971, the Dow was down 11 days in a row. Then the all-time record of 12 days of trading in the red was set in 1941 and matched in 1968. As the market took a tumble this afternoon, the Federal Reserve announced they are cutting interest rates again by 1/4 point, but that you should expect fewer cuts in the next year. Inflation has been stubbornly high lately, so national correspondent Atral Nashar, she's taking a look at why the Fed plans to change course.
The cost of borrowing coming down just a bit more.
The committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by 1/4 percentage point to 4.25% to 4.5%.
The Federal Reserve's rate cut comes even after a series of higher than expected inflation reports, robust retail sales in November, and a steady stream of data showing a strong jobs market.
There's nothing compelling the Fed to cut interest rates at this point, but what they want is to get interest rates a little bit closer to that neutral level. Now that inflation has come down and is still just a little bit below the 3% mark, they don't want those high interest rates to derail what's otherwise a pretty strong economy.
The Fed won't meet again until after President-elect Trump takes office. And since inflation has been so stubborn lately, they're not expected to make another rate cut at their next meeting. And that could make Trump even more vocal about his disdain for Chair Powell, who he hand-selected for the job in 2017. In 2019, Trump tweeted, "Who is our bigger enemy, Jay Powell or Chairman Xi?" Earlier this month, Trump said he has no plans to fire Powell. Powell said even if he was asked to resign, he'd refuse.
What makes central banks around the world effective is their independence from political influence.
For the private sector, political influence in their favor is exactly what many executives are looking for. A new survey from consulting firm Teneo asked 300 CEOs around the world what they expect from a second Trump administration. And 64% expect that potentially disruptive Trump administration policies like new tariffs and regulation cuts will ultimately help their businesses in 2025. But as the Fed proved Wednesday, future economic conditions are never a sure thing.
We're not on any preset course.
In Washington, I'm Atral Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Nissan shares are up over 30% since Monday as the company confirms it is discussing a possible merger with Honda. AP reports Mitsubishi has also been part of these talks. All three Japanese automakers said in August they plan to share parts for electric vehicles and research software for autonomous driving. Based on market capitalization, a merger would mean a worth of about $55 billion. Car safety regulators are no longer trying to recall nearly 50 million airbag inflators they said were ineffective and dangerous. In January, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said inflators from ARC Automotive, Inc. could explode and injure people. But the agency now says it's looking into questions raised by the auto industry about manufacturing differences. Gas-powered cars could be a relic of the past in California in just 10 short years. The Biden administration has given a green light for California to ban all new sales of gas-powered cars by the year 2035. The EPA is also granting a waiver for California to significantly reduce nitrogen oxide emissions from heavy trucks and off-road vehicles. Both of these rule changes do have one caveat. The new Trump administration could override the policies before they take effect. The holiday shopping rush is definitely underway right now, but there could be a Grinch out there waiting to ruin your Christmas cheer. In tonight's Consumer Alert, our Cassie Arsenault shares what you need to be on the lookout for.
There are 4 products that are widely searched on the internet and super popular, and they are very coveted gifts this season. But with that popularity comes bad actors that are trying to lure you in. Here's those popular 4 products. Apple products, Yeezy sneakers by Adidas, Rolex watches, and Louis Vuitton purses and wallets. And here's what the con looks like. Now, because these luxury items are sometimes hard to get, even hard to find, and very expensive, people are always looking for a deal. But if you think you've snagged one of these products at a very low price, I can assure you it's probably not real.
The moment you're giving your personal information, credit card details or whatever, away to some of these folks, it may not seem like, $10 for a replica. Okay, it's not about the money always, right? It's about what you gave away. And you may have given away your privacy, your personal information, your home address, your location, which then opens you up or makes you more susceptible to scams in the future.
So here's some of those websites and ads that McAfee researchers were able to track down. And even though they look legitimate and well done, it's how you get to these websites that's usually the dead giveaway that it's a scam. So first and foremost, avoid any unsolicited texts, emails, or any ads that pop up. And if they take you or reroute you from a legitimate website for these luxury items, you can usually tell that the URL is slightly off. There's something different in that website address. Whenever you're shopping online, just use a credit card. It has better consumer protections and you can easily dispute a charge if it ends up being a scam. Whereas if you use your debit card, sometimes that money is just gone forever. And the price is usually low for a reason. This means you're either gonna get a horrible fake or sometimes not even a product at all. Fighting fraud, I'm Cassie Arsenault.
Good tips, Cassie. Thank you. Coming up, what we know about a major data breach that's left people in one state wondering what will happen to their personal information. We'll be right back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin in Ohio with a new rule impacting parents paid by the state to serve as caregivers for their developmentally disabled children. Parents will now have to try to hire outside care workers first.
That rule affects Maeve Sedano's family and 40,000 other children like her who need serious care.
She needs help with all of her activities of daily living. So that's, eating, drinking, bathing, dressing, toileting, all of that.
The rule passed by the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities says a parent may only provide home care services if there is no other willing and able provider. Then an addendum says parents must re-engage the provider search process every 4 to 6 months. So the Sedanos and 2 other families are suing to have the rule removed. They say that the DODD is influenced by the Association of County Boards of Developmental Disabilities, who she says has a bias against parents.
Citing ongoing investigations, Governor Dan McKee is staying tight-lipped about who's responsible for preventing a cyber attack. The RI Bridges system, hacked by ransomware group Brain Cipher, is run by contractor Deloitte.
We'll let the investigation determine, whether we were protected as well, or whether Deloitte. Remember, Deloitte's managing this system, right? So certainly the heavy responsibilities on them.
But years of reports from Rhode Island's Auditor General express concerns about cybersecurity. The most recent report, published in April, says, quote, the state does not currently have sufficient resources dedicated for the size and complexity of state operations, and risk mitigation is not progressing quickly enough.
In mid-January, Firefly Aerospace will be using its own technology to support NASA's $101 million mission called Ghost Riders in the Sky. Firefly's lunar lander Blue Ghost will take off from Florida on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, where it will spend 45 days traveling into space. NASA says Blue Ghost will be carrying 10 of their payloads that will start doing research in Earth's orbit. This expedition marks Firefly Aerospace's first Blue Ghost mission. CEO Jason Kim says this mission will be historic. This will be the first time a private company will successfully stick a landing on the moon.
And coming up, the latest, you can ship out packages and have them arrive by Christmas, which, by the way, is just about a week from today. We'll be right back. There's 1 week left before Christmas, and that's still a lot of time to finish your holiday shopping. But how about your holiday shipping? Today is the deadline for the U.S. Postal Service's ground shipping within the lower 48 states. For USPS Priority Mail Express, you have until Saturday. The deadline for UPS is Thursday or Monday with next day air. And for FedEx, if you're willing to pay for it, you can cut it as close as Christmas Eve if you use same day shipping. And the Mega Millions jackpot is now up to an estimated $825 million after no winner claimed last night's drawing. A lucky winner could take home at least $382 million just before Christmas. What a gift that would be. Players have to match all 6 numbers, including the gold mega ball, to win the grand prize. It could be the largest prize ever won in December and the 7th largest in jackpot history. That drawing is on Friday. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.